All right, today we're jumping into the story of Gregory of Nazianzus, a really important thinker, a poet, and a bishop who honestly shaped Christian doctrine for centuries to come. But here's the kicker. The thing that makes his story so incredible, he never actually wanted any of it. Not the power, not the influence, none of it. And that's really the big question we're tackling here. How does a guy who just wants to be left alone with his books end up right in the middle of a massive theological and political firestorm and somehow come out as its most important voice? It's a wild story. So, let's get into it. To really get Gregory, you have to understand who he was as a person. He wasn't some power-hungry politician climbing the ladder or a fiery preacher trying to win over crowds. No, he was pretty much the exact opposite.
Yeah, this slide paints a really clear picture. Our sources describe Gregory as this incredibly sensitive person, almost painfully shy. His perfect day? A quiet life of contemplation, just him and his books and his own thoughts. In fact, after a pretty bad experience, he just up and retreated to a solitary life in Seleucia around 375 AD. So this is our hero, folks, a brilliant scholar, basically in hiding.
But here's the thing. While Gregory was off looking for some peace and quiet, the capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople, was literally tearing itself apart. And it was all over one huge question. Who, or what exactly, was Jesus Christ?
So in 379 AD, right in the middle of all this chaos, this desperate, leaderless community in the capital, they send for the one person they think can save them. They call on the reluctant scholar, Gregory, to leave his quiet retreat and come straight into the heart of the fight.
And you have to see what he was walking into. It was a total David and Goliath situation. On one side, you had the Arians. They believed the Son was a lesser creation than the Father. And they were dominant. They had the political backing, they had the big, beautiful churches, they had the popular support. And on the other side, you had the Nazianzene, who believed the Son was equal to the Father. They were just this tiny, persecuted group, meeting in secret in a private home. Gregory was being asked to lead what looked like a completely hopeless cause.
So where do you even start if you're him? Not in some grand cathedral, that's for sure. He starts in a small room in a relative's house, and he gives it a name that's just full of defiant hope. He called his little chapel Anastasia. It means resurrection. I mean, what a powerful statement. He was basically declaring that right here in this little room, the true faith, which seemed totally dead and buried in the capital, was going to rise again. It was basically a declaration of war, but a war fought with ideas, not swords.
Well, the response was not subtle. It was immediate, and it was brutal. The establishment didn't just disagree with him, they came after him with everything they had. We're told he was made fun of in public, actual mobs gathered to throw stones at him, his tiny church was invaded while he was preaching, and he was even dragged into court on fake charges. Seriously, for a man who just wanted to be left alone, this must have been a complete nightmare.
But Gregory, he had a weapon that was way more powerful than any mob. He had his mind. So cornered and attacked, this quiet, shy scholar stood up and delivered a series of speeches that would literally change the course of history.
Just 5. That's it. Over about 2 years, with all that chaos and violence swirling around him, Gregory delivered what are now called the 5 theological orations. And these were not just regular sermons, oh no. They were this systematic, absolutely brilliant defense of Nicene theology that just took the Arian arguments apart, piece by piece.
And he starts in such a clever way. He doesn't begin by attacking their logic, he attacks their whole approach. For Gregory, talking about God wasn't some clever debate club, which is what he accused the Arians of doing. He said it was a sacred task, something that required spiritual purity and deep thought. He was completely reframing the debate from a shouting match to a spiritual quest.
Then he goes right for the heart of their intellectual arrogance. See, the Arians claimed they could logically define God, put him in a box. Gregory's response was simple but profound. Human reason has limits. He argued that, we can look at the incredible order of creation, the stars, nature, everything, and know that, a divine mind exists. But to think we can fully understand or define what that divine essence is? No way.
And this slide really lays out the core of the fight. The Arians saw God like a pyramid, a hierarchy. Gregory argued for an eternal equality. Using scripture and some seriously powerful reasoning, he explained the doctrine of the Trinity pretty much as it's known today. One divine nature, shared equally by 3 distinct persons.
The Son isn't some lesser creation, he's consubstantial, made of the very same stuff as the Father.
The impact of these 5 speeches was just seismic. They completely flipped the script. Gregory's small secret community started to grow, and the intellectual legs that Arianism stood on just crumbled. But this story has one more dramatic and kind of shocking twist.
Just look at this timeline. The speed is incredible. By 381 AD, there's a new emperor who's on the Nicene side. A huge council of bishops gets together, and they make Gregory's theology the official, orthodox faith of the entire empire. It's a complete and total victory. And then, in that very same council, his political enemies use a technicality to force him to resign. And that's the great paradox of his life, isn't it? His ideas won. They became the bedrock of Christian belief for the next 1600 years and counting. But the man himself, he got pushed aside. He won the great war of ideas, but lost the petty political battle for the bishop's chair. And, true to his character, he didn't put up a fight. He just resigned and went back to the quiet life he'd always wanted in the first place. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought. Gregory's story really makes you ask what true influence even looks like. He did his life's most important work not by grabbing power and holding on, but by championing his ideas and then letting go. So it makes you wonder, is the most lasting legacy built by winning the throne? Or is it built by having the wisdom and the integrity to know when to just walk away?